Welcome to part 2. Luca always felt a connection to animals. He loved every one of them, so obviously he agreed to help find the puppy. Good child, good, the man grinned. Suddenly the man punched Luca in the gut and placed a black mask over his face. The man dragged Luca over to the car and locked him in the boot, shoving Luca in. Luca tried desperately to scream, but nobody heard him. The car started and drove towards the nearby forest. 20 minutes later, the boot clicked open and sunlight washed the car. Luca screeched and tried to sprint down the road as he got out, but the man snatched him by the collar and whispered into his little ear aggressively, "Nobody will hear you scream, child," and dragged him into the forest. Luca couldn't see where he was going, so every so often he banged his head on trees and tripped over roots. "Stranger danger!" he screamed. "Keep screaming, child, keep screaming." His voice sent a chill down Luca's spine. Suddenly the black-coated man wrenched off his mask. They were in some kind of clearing. The tree's branches were so thick that sunlight couldn't penetrate them, forcing shadows to silhouette on the leafy floor. But that didn't explain the figures huddled around the clearing, waiting. "You're going to perish here, child," he laughed an icy, inhumane laugh. "There is no mummy and daddy to save you now." "Yes, there is," he mumbled. "What?" they questioned. They are. They're going to be here any minute now," Luca said, gaining confidence. "No, they're not, because I'm going to slaughter both of them." Rage ran through Luca's body, making his toes curl on the leafy floor. The man pushed Luca over and snatched a pendant off his neck. It read, "Luca and his lovely family." Inside were miniature versions of all the photos of the members of his family, and all the pictures he's ever taken of the family. The man crushed it in his hand. Luca roared, and suddenly his fingernails bled. Massive bones grew from his nails, and a rush of power formed in his stomach. Luca sprinted at the man and dug his fingernails into the man's heart, bursting it. The man stumbled back and fell to one knee. An army of gorillas charged from the bushes. One picked him up by the throat and pounded a fist into his teeth. Then he launched the man to the next one, and the man's skull was crushed on a rock. A massive gorilla, at least 12 feet tall, muscles scaling down his thick arms, beaded his chest widely, making sounds like bombs dropping. He picked the man up by one leg, smashed him from side to side. Luca's body grew rapidly, about to the size of a large grandfather clock, and walked over to the defeated man. The gorillas bowed as Luca's nails dug into the man's shin and picked him up. The beast's jaws opened, revealing rows and rows of prickly sharp teeth. Luca tore the man's throat out, and his body limply fell to the floor. Luca's nails still held up the man's head, and Luca chanted, "Benvenuto alla jungla." The head fell to the floor, and the massive gorilla stood up and said in a deep voice, "Greetings, master." "I can talk to you," Luca said, amazed. "You will soon become the king of the jungle, beast. But for now, I must present you this." He held up a ring made of stone with a small skull carved on. Luca took it, and suddenly all the gorillas left, one picking up the head and dragging him into the forest. Luca shrunk back down to normal size, and his claws disappeared. The beast fell to the ground, shocked, and burst into tears until the police found him later on, sitting next to a mauled, headless body in a forest. Because if there's one thing you don't want to mess with, it's a pissed-off 5-year-old who just figured out his powers. Chapter 3. The Hotel. Luca looked up from his ring and around at the poor African city roaming around him. There were markets lining the streets, and a certain busy aroma surrounding the area. The sky was growing darker, and people started closing their windows. Luca scanned the horizon, searching for some kind of shelter he could sleep in for the night, but his efforts proved fruitless as the shapes in the distance became more dark and harder to distinguish. A tall man approached to Luca and asked him, "What are you, a small child, doing out of the night like this?" Nothing," Luca replied. "See, my parents are looking at the market and said they told me to wait here and look for somewhere to sleep for the night." "Well, there is a hotel down the road," he said, pointing his finger down the road. "You have to turn right, and trust me, you'll know it when you see it. It's a bit out of place in this town." Luca knew what he meant. "Hope you find your parents, and good luck," he finally concluded. So Luca set down the road, unaware that the man's eyes were still on him. therefore making an artificial search for his parents.